Hello and welcome to this week's episode of How to Be a Great GM. It is Celebrate the Player Month here on How to Be a Great GM, and well, that's exactly what we're going to be doing, is celebrating the player and trying to make your life as a player that much easier. Now, I remember being a player once long ago. As a matter of fact, it was last week when I had the privilege of being a player, and something that we have spoken about on this channel before, and we have explored the topic quite extensively, but one that's worth revisiting is how to make backstories that work for you, but also for your GM. This is the important thing. Now, your GM might not include your backstory in the bigger campaign because it's too daunting, it's too elaborate, whatever the situation is. It can be done in a way that the GM doesn't even want to touch your backstory. And as a GM, it's like there's just too much information here. I don't know where to start. I don't know how to incorporate this. Well, this is what I suggest you do to improve your PC backstory, but also to plunder it for useful GM information that you can incorporate into your game later on. So let's start. Where do we start? Well, very simply, I have a few questions that I make sure to be able to answer whenever I look at my character. The very first question is, where was the character born? And it's not just a simple question, folks. This is a complicated question. Who were the guardians of that character? Where and what was the situation like in that space that they were born? Again, this doesn't mean, though, that you have to write out a giant 7-page or 7-chapter backstory. You were born in the town of Gantz. Gantz was known as a slaver town, and as a young child, your terror was of being turned into a slave and dragged away from your family. That's it. That's enough. All you then need to drop in is the name of a guardian or someone who was important to you in your early stages of child development. My mother, bless her soul, is dead, is alive. It doesn't really matter, but you give her a name, and then that's it. You then, if you really want to finesse it, you add in how do you feel about that birth. If I look at my own personal backstory, I was born in a little town in the middle of nowhere, as far away from anywhere as possible. It was an idyllic upbringing. We lived on a farm, I had friends, I was able to roam around and explore the natural world and the beauty that was all around me, and then we moved to a city. But in my childhood, I had a very good friend, and his name was BB, and we ran around all over the place together. I haven't seen him since we left that farm. That's it. That's as simple as it gets. You don't have to do any more. Then you talk about your next step. Your education. How were you educated? And what was the influence of that education upon you? Now, when I say education, I'm not just talking about the notion of, well, here's your scholastic education. Where did you learn to read and write? In role-playing terms, we are often in a medieval setting where that wasn't necessarily what you would be taught. I'm also talking about your survival skills. How did you learn to make it on your own? What were your pitfalls? How did you learn to become a baker? Your education does not have to link directly to your occupation or your current adventure class. Why? Because those things change. I remember my education. I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I was going to be a dinosaur hunter, a sort of a paleontologist, or a lawyer. Being a filmmaker never even entered into the equation, and being a YouTuber, and certainly out of the realms of possibility. My grandmother, however, always knew that I should be writing and telling stories, so maybe she knew something that I didn't. Nonetheless, my education was in a fantastic school. It was incredibly demanding academically, and the teachers were incredibly encouraging and nourishing. I had an amazing teacher, Mrs. McMichael, who really motivated me. I had a whole bunch of teachers, as a matter of fact. So I had a really good experience. Notice how I dropped in a name. I had a really good experience. I enjoyed it. Yes, all of the wonderful things about puberty were going on at the same time, but I don't think that's necessarily important in this particular context. Or maybe it is. But then you can include just a paragraph on that, just a little sentence even on that. Once you're done with that, you then have to talk about your first job. My first job was a disaster, and I resigned after 6 months because I hated the idea of having to work and do all of this work stuff. It was just insane. It was crazy. It was like, I have to work on a Saturday. No, I'm going to be role-playing on a Saturday. That's what I'm going to be doing. Little did I know, flash forward 40 years and suddenly... Anyway, so choose your occupation. What did your character do after they got educated, but before they started adventuring. Now, I know some of you are going to go, oh, well, my character started adventuring at the age of 16. That's absolutely fine. What were they destined to do before they became an adventurer? Well, my character was destined to become an adventurer. Okay, why? Why was your character destined to become an adventurer? Why did your character go into the occupation that they were in before their first adventure? That's a very, very important question. Why did your character go? Was it to make money? Was it a family business? Was it because it was all that was available? Most of the time, people will go into occupations, especially in the medieval time period, which suits one of their attributes. Now, most of the role-playing games we have attributes and skills, so you would most likely go to an occupation that tick boxes most of the skills that you currently possess. So if it is wielding a sword, possibly you would have become a blacksmith or perhaps a page to a knight in the hopes of becoming a knight one day. So there is that kind of journey. But putting in your education and your occupation and how you felt about it, that's important. I hated it. I thought it was boring. It was dull. I didn't want to be a Cooper. I wanted to be a Fletcher or a this or that. Always putting that little sentence and a name, always adding in a name. My first job, I was working in a hardware store as a paint consultant. What color people should paint their houses, then I had to go and mix the paint. It was awful, but I had a friend there, Hugo, who he really got stuck in and really did all of that handiwork stuff, which I admired him for that. But like I said, 6 months and I was out of there. Way too much real life for me. Anyway, and then finally, it's only 5 questions that you have to ask. What caused you to become an adventurer? Why are you leaving this job that you hate or that you love, but which you have, as opposed to all of the homeless beggars out there who don't have jobs and have to wait for adventurers to come along and bribe them some coins so they can tell the adventurers the top secret information? That's not a real, that's not an occupation really that one aspires for. Anyway, so why did you leave? Was it for money? Was it for love? Was it because you were disgraced? Was it because you just wanted a change of scenery? Bearing in mind, picture yourself as this character going, oh, I live in quite a nice town. I had quite a nice upbringing. I have a fairly decent job that pays well. I have a guardian. I have friends from school. I have, a work colleague, and we barbecue on the Saturdays. Give all of that up to pick up a sword and go into some grimy old basement to kill monsters. Why would I do that? And it could very well be that there's wanderlust. Nonetheless, there has to be a reason for your initial decision. And after you have had your first adventure, I would strongly advise you to go back to your character sheet and then to say how you feel, and by you I mean your character, how your character feels about their first adventure. It was amazing. I was terrified. I was so scared. I was this, I was that. But we overcame this thing and we killed all those giant rats, and the barkeeper was so appreciative. He gave us 5 gold. It would take me 3 months to earn 5 gold, etc., etc., etc. And so what then happens is your backstory becomes a living document. You don't have to fill out, again, giant pages of notes and things. Just a paragraph, just a sentence. Drop in a name here, drop in a name there. Trust me. After the campaign wraps up, you've got this backstory, but it's this wonderful story of your character. And all it's done is taken you a few moments. Now, there's a huge benefit to doing this, by the way, is that you can then look back at your backstory, which originally was this dead document that you created and then forgot about. Now you can look back and remember when that first adventure where we went and killed the gnolls? And you've got a little note in there on how you felt about it. That's really powerful. Now, if you share that information with the GM can go, hey, I can use this. Oh, I remember that. I see here that the player really hated that adventure because it was so tough and so difficult, and they were glad that it was over. I can use that to not ever do it again. So you end up with this wonderful living document rather than a dead document, as well as the capacity to remember and recall the adventures, but also how you felt about those adventures. And that creates a really, really well-rounded space, as far as I'm concerned, not only for the GM to pull out those names, to pull out some feelings, to pull out some locations from that particular backstory that you've created, but to continuously use that document moving forward as well. That's my thought on how to improve your backstory and create a living story which continues to grow adventure after adventure. Your task this week is to do exactly that. Start creating a living diary of your experience. You sit around the table for 4 hours. You walk away with that wonderful warm glow of what happened. Is it going to kill you to take 10 minutes to just jot down your notes on how you feel about your session? Well, let's find out. Make your mark. Leave us a comment down below. If it did kill you after writing 10 minutes, please just leave us a comment so that we know to warn others not to do it. But if it didn't kill you, write a comment and say, I am still alive. I am still here. I did not die from writing this down. I promise you it will make your experience that much better. Nonetheless, let's check out who today's sponsor is. This week's video is brought to you by Ink and Lyre's Stargazers Guide to Aroria. It's a beautiful Kickstarter that is currently running and in its final days as of the recording of this video. So if you need to get into this, you need to get into it now. And why would you want to get into this? Well, apart from the fact that it's a beautiful, beautiful campaign setting, it has some really unique features, which I have to say I absolutely like. Using the 12 zodiac symbols, you can create your character. So we've got amazing artwork, amazing book layout, and then this Zodiac character build system. I have to say it's a lot of fun to use the system, and then 12 subclasses and 3 races. It's a complete package. This is what you want from a campaign setting, I have to say personally, and you need to get in there. Use the link in the description down below. Get in there soon, because this Kickstarter is coming to a very successful conclusion, I might add. So that's Stargazers Guide to Aroria. Check them out. Another big thank you, of course, to all of you for watching all the way through until the end, and until next week. And all I have to say is goodbye. I couldn't remember what it was going to... It's like all I have to say is goodbye. I mean, how difficult is it to finish your... Anyway, bye.